Good afternoon, everyone, or evening, depending on what time zone you're in. My name is Kim McGuire, and I am with Fortune Management, and we have a treat for you this afternoon. We have Mr. Nick Clausen with us talking to us about lasers and how to get the return on investment in your laser. And so this is going to be really conversational. We're going to have some fun here, learn all about lasers and some of the work that Nick's already done with many of his clients and what he could possibly do with you. We are going to have it, you're all muted. So if you do have a question, please put it type it in the chat box and we will absolutely get your question answered. So before we jump right in, I'm going to introduce Nick because he has quite an impressive resume. Nick Clausen is the director of Fortune Management's new division called Laser Mastery. He's the founder and owner of Dental Laser Coaching and it has a standard and advanced proficiencies in laser dentistry from the Academy of Laser Dentistry, or ALD. He is currently the chair of the Manufacturing Council for the ALD and has served on the ALD Education Committee as well. Nick is currently contracted by Convergent Dental and assists with Solea trainings and has done over 130 Solea in-office clinical team consultations. So he's very experienced in this field. Nick has over 17 years of laser dental experience, including working with several different companies, including BioLase, BioResearch, Convergent Dental, Photona, LVI, Quintana Aesthetic Lasers, Thor Lasers, and Ultradent. He has his business degree from Iowa State and his MBA from Creighton, and he has certifications in project management e-commerce from Georgia Tech, and has completed the program on negotiation from Harvard Law School, which sounds very, very interesting. So welcome, Nick, and thank you for joining me this evening so we can really get an idea of where your passion, which I know is laser dentistry. So tell us a little bit about how did you start laser dentistry? What was that process like?
Well, thanks for having me, Kim. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here. But I started Laser Mastery because they can completely transform the dental practice and the patient experience. I titled this session today that we're doing How to Get the ROI You Envision, because I feel many in the dental industries are not aware or not getting these transformative results. I truly believe, because I have seen these results and I want them to become the norm. However, for various reasons, and we'll dive into that later today, these results are not achieved by the masses. Sure, some doctors that get a laser think it's great for a couple things, but they're not getting transformative results that I'm speaking about. So this just adds to the narrative or perception of pessimism toward lasers in the dental industry, and I'm going to get into that today. So with this program, I want to coach teams how to expedite the optimization of laser technology and to get these transformative results.
Ooh, use this word transformative. I love it. What do you mean by transformative, or like, how is that different from other technologies?
Well, that's a great question. And I think to answer that, I need to talk about the patient perceptions and wants, and then I'll get a little bit into what lasers can do and how they do them. So it's unfortunate, and frankly, it sucks because in dentistry, we're lumped in there with death and taxes of things that people fear or don't want to do. And as I mentioned, you know, before, but the good news is, I believe that we can finally change this perception, and we don't deserve to be in that category at all because lasers have so much to offer in dentistry. So consider these stats. 60% of the people don't go to the dentist because they're scared. That's unbelievable. And listen, it's 82% of the people that do go have anxiety. So that is a real thing. And Fred Joyal was speaking at Dentsply Serial World, and it really rung true with me. And how powerful this is. And it's called somatic markers. And what that means is people make really poor decisions when they're nervous. So think about that, how tough that is for dentistry, because 82% of your patients are nervous and they're going to make poor decisions. That's why enrollment is so tough. So it's very difficult. But the other side of the coin is half the people aren't satisfied with their smiles, and 92% believe it's a valuable social asset. So of all the things you could do, the smile is most important. So we have this weird dichotomy in dentistry that people are scared, but yet they want things done. So that's the first thing. And the thing is, you may ask, so how is a laser a change agent for this? So imagine, if you will, if you could do 90% of your restorative cases without anesthesia. and you could shorten your chair time by 30 to 60% and do a lot of these surgical procedures with just topical. How would that change your practice? And how
Wow.
does that change the patient experience? It can be transformative, because if you think about it, those 60% of the people that don't go to the dentist, they don't go because they're scared of the drill and the shot and just the perception. So if we can remove some of those things, it is truly transformative, and it takes us out of that category that we don't want to be in with death and taxes, which we shouldn't be in anyway. So that's why it's transformative, because you can completely wow the patient. And just to add a little bit of clarity on this, Kim, I want to make sure that the audience has clarity on lasers, because lasers mean different things for different people. So in dentistry, there's really three families of lasers, if you will. The first laser is called low-level lasers. And low-level lasers are lasers that don't cut. Think of them as like a curing light, but a special light, if you will. And there's been studies that show, and we call this in the field photobiomodulation, which basically there is a whole multi-day course just on this topic alone. We actually just presented to Congress for opioid addiction, because there's another solution for it that we can do with lasers. But basically what we can do is we can stimulate cells or we can inhibit them, meaning with just a light, we can prove that it's called the Arndt-Schultz curve, where we can actually make cells wake up and fight bacteria and heal and produce ATP, which is the fuel of oxygen, and create cells to do things. Or if we provide a lot of light in there, we can slow them down and help with pain. And that's all down to a science on dosage. So there's a whole science on this, and this is called low-level lasers. The
Okay.
second type of lasers are what we refer to as soft tissue lasers. That's what most people in dentistry have. These are lasers that just cut soft tissue. And also, these can be in a cutting and non-cutting mode. And this is where hygiene uses a lot of these lasers, and doctors use them for one or two things like troughing or something like that. And again, we have a whole division in Fortune Management and Hygiene Mastery that just teaches a component of that. And then there's a third family, and they're called all tissue lasers. These are very different because they can do the things I just discussed, but they can work on tooth structure and bone as well. And they're even more powerful, but simultaneously more conservative, which is crazy when you think about it. It's like, think of it like LASIK for the tooth. It can work at a cellular level on hard tissue and soft tissue. So two things, we can really do microdentistry, and we can do a ton with just topical, which you never thought you could do before. And it has an analgesic effect when we're doing restorations or we're doing cavity preparations. And a lot of times you don't even use a handpiece or a drill. And that goes back to those patient fears. If we don't have to use it, it really wows them. And that's my area of expertise. I really focus on the last one. And that's what this program is about. So there's specific courses on the others, but the Laser Mastery program really hones in on this technology and refines it. So I wanted to put some clarity on that up front.
Absolutely. So we've got the soft tissue laser and then of course, the all tissue laser. So what's missing? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing that practices are facing in getting these different types of results?
Yeah, it's a challenge. And I mentioned, there may be a pessimism in the marketplace, and it really boils down to two things and why that's out there. And the first thing is that doctors a lot of times aren't getting predictable clinical results with the lasers. And let me explain why. Because lasers are different. It's not harder, it's different. Think about this. If you went to dental school, you worked on with a handpiece and a drill and you feel, you could probably close your eyes and do a prep. You do everything by feel. And now some manufacturer comes out here and says, hey, I got this great tool. By the way, everything you learned in dental school and all that tactile feel that you know and love, it's gone. So it's different, and there's a learning curve, and everybody learns differently. And by the way, we tell you to do this stuff. And by the way, that you don't have that security blanket of anesthesia. So good luck, and it's nerve-wracking for some people, and they never get over that learning curve. My example is it's kind of like many doctors have a bumpy landing on the first couple they try to do, and they kind of park the jet, so to speak, and they never get through that learning curve. So it's really, really important to be able to observe the doctors, correct them, coach them to be more efficient, effective, and predictable, so they're not stressing out if they're hurting the patient. And they got to be able to self-correct. So that's the first thing, and that's the easier of the two. But the second thing that's missing and has been missing for quite a while is the team component of this. team understanding of the power of the tool that they have in their office and how to make that efficient and effective in the processes that they have to be able to see some of the benefits. Most team members aren't even aware of all the things that it can do and how to talk to patients about it. They don't have coherent messaging, when in actuality, the team is the secret sauce of success. And they don't even realize it a lot of the time. So that's one of the things that makes integration in a short time frame and expedited hard, because everybody takes this at a different pace. And last, one of the things that teams, and I'm including doctors on this, is that they really don't understand the patient's wants. I'm not saying that dental teams don't understand it, but when you look at it at a macro level, a lot of times you ask what's more important for the patient, they make assumptions. And it's rather interesting. Fred Joyle did, when he was with the 1-800 dentist, I think this was about 3 years ago, Kim, asked 20,000 patients that were looking for a new dentist, what are the top 5 most important things? And I found this rather interesting, and this is in the order that they rank it. And when I go in and consult offices, I ask them this question and ask for their feedback. And I can tell you this, the people at the front desk usually get this right. They get the number 1, because the number 1 most important things for them is knowing, hey, do you take my insurance? Now, we could have a whole discussion about insurance and what's good and what's bad, but what's important is you don't want to talk bad about it, no matter if you're a fee for dentist or not, because it's their number 1 most important thing. So how you pre-frame that is critical, knowing that that's the most important thing for a lot of people. But number 2 on that list is customers want, or patients want, to be able to see you on their terms. In other words, evenings and weekends. So a lot of this Monday through Thursday isn't optimal. People don't want to take off work if they don't have to. And there's not much we can do about these 2 things, but the next 3, lasers can play a big role. And number 3, the third most important thing is customers want cutting edge technology in their dental practice. Nothing says cutting edge or avant-garde more than a laser. And this is true. Just a couple months ago, a good friend of mine from Boston called me and said, Nick, I'm looking for a new dentist. Do you know any in Boston? I go, why are you telling me this? He goes, Nick, they have accordion doors, they have paper files. They don't have any instruments that I didn't see when I was 5 years old and I'm 50. And I know technology is up there and they don't have any. I want to go to someone that's investing in the latest technology. So it's real. And this is 20,000 statistically relevant. Third most important thing is technology. Now, the 4th one is interesting. Customers they don't want to go other places if they don't have to. In other words, if there's something needs to be done, they don't want to go to specialists. I believe in periodontists, orthodontists, endodontists, etc. But think about it. It took them enough courage to come to your office. The last thing they want to do is go somewhere else. So if they can do it under your roof, they really want to do it. And the 5th most important thing is customers care about online reviews. So much so that they make their final decision where to go once they've investigated doctors on video testimonials and reviews. They are critical. And when you can wow a patient, those video testimonials just come out with a laser. So very important things, and a laser can play a major critical role on 5 of those. And just think about it. When you read down the list, who's doing all 5 of those things? And I tell you who's doing it. DSOs are doing it, and they're killing it. They're working long hours. They got specialists under one roof. They brag about all the insurances they take, and they have modern technology, and they have tons of testimonials. So these are things that we can do as GPs as well. But man, a laser can really be a strong part of 3 of those 5 of the things, the 5 most important things for patients.
I love that. I love that. The survey that Fred and his team did, it was really eye-opening. And I'm actually thinking with what you're talking about, and I know Nick and you and I have talked about this before, it's like when a doctor brings on CEREC, and so many of our Fortune Management clients work with CEREC, and there's always this learning curve, no matter how great the technology is. And of course, the technology maybe wasn't as great, 15 or 20 years ago, but it's really improved. And getting the whole entire team on board and creating that consistent coaching and training is so important. So I think that one of the great things about your program is that whether or not they bought the laser and they maybe got trained on it a little bit, now you're really helping the whole team integrate it into the practice.
Absolutely.
So
knowledge.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say knowledge is potential power. But that's
Right.
one thing, we've got to implement it, and that takes some commitment. And a lot of times everybody learns differently. A lot of times there's a major hands-on component that needs to be addressed, and that's where we really come into play.
Exactly, exactly. Execution is the power, right? So specifically, why don't you give us some examples on how you've helped practices overcome these challenges that you've just outlined?
Good question. Gosh, there's so many, but I do want to make two clarifications up front before I get into some specifics. One, I just want to note that laser manufacturers, they have improved dramatically. Because I've been in this game for, like I said, 17 years, but over the last 5 years, it has really been eye-opening on what manufacturers have done, not only with their technology, but their training. You mentioned up front, I've helped Convergent with about 130 in-office trains. I mean, they have their own user group meetings where they have tracks on perio and pedo and even practice management and restorative. I mean, it's amazing the level and quality of training that you can get today. So by no means am I saying that, this is required without them. I'm just taking it and expediting and adding the team component into it as well. And it really, really helps. And the second thing I wanted to note is that it all boils down to, in my opinion, commitment. I can tell how I've helped people, but as a coach, what I do with the doctors is I discuss best practices and I talk about common hurdles, and then I talk about what they want to do, and I help eliminate those so that they don't have to stumble on them and learn the hard way and try to expedite that. So I've really got some good results that I can talk about. For example, Laser Mastery. This is a brand new program. We've done a pilot with 2 doctors, so I'll talk a little bit about them. And for example, Dr. Mosby was the first one that we did. He's in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And let me just read what he said when we got done. He said, I had a great machine that was underutilized. He said, my limiting belief was that if I didn't do it already, it couldn't be done. Boy, was I wrong. In a couple hours with Nick's help, I was outside my comfort zone doing procedures I never dreamed of doing before without anesthetic. So you have this belief that, okay, this is how dentistry works because that's been my experience, but the laser changes the game. And you got to open yourself up to step outside the box to do that. And Dr. Mosby did a great job. And by the way, I called the office manager and I said, from the business side, what's changed? Because Dr. Mosby wanted me to come in and help him clinically, but we worked with the whole team. And she said, Nick, it's amazing. Over the last 3 years, we've been stagnant on new patients for the 3 years prior. But the first quarter, since you were in this fall and tracking in April, they're up 47% on average with new patients, just from that. And production, same thing. They've been stagnant for 3 years, and they're up on average 15% this first quarter and projected into April. So not only are you getting clinical results, but that's the thing about this program. We want it to transform to business results. And so that was just one experience. The other one we did was with Dr. Miyasaki. They have a totally different reason they had me come in. Dr. Miyasaki wants to transition out and transition his fresh out of dental school daughter in, thought the laser would be a great tool. Their collections are up 8% the first month, 32% the next month, and 8% after. So that big spike is when we have an in-office engagement. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But like I said, I've been doing this for years before we even had this program. For example, I was in Washington and Dr. Jackie had me come in 2017. I did one day with his team. And a year later, and he did great, but he called me, he goes, Nick, there's just a couple things I'm not doing, and I want to do some marketing. So just come back. And I came back, and now what he said is really noticed is that his case acceptance has gone up and his referrals have gone way down, and patients just love it. So there's many examples like that. And also I've trained DSOs. I got a call a few months ago, Kim, and they said, Nick, we have a laser that's 10 years old and the company's not even around anymore. It's a company I used to work for. And they go, does this thing work? Because we got 2 new doctors and should we get rid of what you do? I go, well, have it serviced. If it works, I can at least have it come in and work. Is it as good as the new technology? No, but it's there and we can at least make it work. And it can't do all those things, but it can do a lot of things. And guess what? That laser's 10 years old. It doesn't have much life in it. When they need a new one, you think they're going to buy one of these newer high-end ones? Absolutely. So that's just a few examples of what we've done here recently.
Awesome. Awesome. So what would you tell a dentist or a practice that has perhaps one of these all tissue lasers that has not had any clinical success? Like they really haven't seen the return on their investment.
Yeah, and it's a shame. And a lot of times, remember the analogy I gave, sometimes these dentists, maybe you get off to a little bit bumpy start and get a little bit of cold feet and their security blanket of anesthesia is gone and they want to go back to it. And I get that. But the first thing that I would say to them is don't stress out. You're not alone. And most importantly, it's not your fault. And especially don't think you're not as good as some of these other dentists that you hear about, because there are different circumstances and everyone learns differently. So, I gave that example of the bumpy landing, but it's almost like you're juggling three balls, and it may be a little hard at first, but once you got it, you got it. And sometimes doctors may be doing one little thing that's causing them that consistency. And so most of the time, I find that they're very close. So don't get frustrated. It's there. And the other thing would be too, you need to, if you had your equipment for a while, make sure it's calibrated and serviced and well maintained, because this is invisible. It's not tactile. Remember, you can't feel it. It's a light. It's like a laser pointer. So if it's not up to par or serviced or something's wrong, you don't know. Now, the new technology, we can access these lasers remotely and do remote diagnostics. It's really cool, but keep on top of that. But most importantly, again, know it can be done. Don't suffer in silence.
Mhm.
People are there to help you. I mentioned what some of these companies are doing. They got great people in place, and get some coaching. There are people like me out there that can help. So if it's not doing what you want, you know, know that there are people out there that can help. Or if you have an older technology, you can always upgrade it. There's really good deals on upgrades within the company or to new technology.
It sounds to me, Nick, like that it's so much about limiting beliefs and maybe transforming those beliefs. And you're right, people need to have more references to support that new belief system. And I think things like calibrating and servicing your laser and making sure you're up to speed on all the latest and greatest is super important. So what would you advise? Like, let's say a dentist has been looking at lasers from afar and they're not really sure and they're considering it, but they're waiting. What would you say to a doctor like that?
Well, the first thing is know your why, and this has become famous with Simon Sinek and others. But my point here is, what do you like to do as a dentist? Because everybody's different. Everybody has things that they like to do or niches within dentistry. Or, I talk to a lot of dentists that are getting close to retire. Hey, I just want to do this, this, and this. Well, what do you want a laser to do for you? Because there's different types of lasers out there, and you want to make sure that it does good what you want to do. That's the first thing,
Sure.
is to know exactly what you want it for. The second thing is stop waiting. I hear this all the time. There's something in business called opportunity cost. And what that is what are you missing out of because you're not investing in this technology? And that's a lost opportunity. It's a lost cost. And I
Mhm.
have so many doctors that give a reason for not getting a laser. I'm going to wait till it gets cheaper. I'm going to wait till it gets smaller. My college roommate had one and said they're crap. They don't work. It's not, I'm going to wait till it's ready for prime time. Things
Mhm.
like that. I hear it all the time. And I can tell you guys this, when I first got into the game, these all tissue lasers, and mind you, they don't have the capabilities that today's lasers have, but they were $40,000. Today, the same equivalent lasers range from $100,000 to $150,000. They have not gotten cheaper. Now you may say, but haven't they? Because I spent $30,000 on a diode, back in 2000, but
Right.
now they're 3,000. That is correct. Well, let me explain. Diode lasers have gone down. So there's something called economies of scale. When you can mass produce something, prices go way down. And diodes are in grocery store scanners, CD players, all these things in other industries diodes are used for, and we can retrofit them to work for a diode laser. So the cost has plummeted because we've got economies of scale. These other lasers, we do not have economies of scale. They're only used in dentistry. As a matter of fact, we've talked about SLEA. It's the first laser really designed for dentistry, at the peak of absorption of what's in two structure, hydroperoxyapatite. So you think about it, it's a market of 200,000. That's a small market. When we only have less than 1% that have it, we have no economies of scale. That's why price is going up. So if you're waiting for price to go down, you're gonna just keep waiting. And we always say, and I say at Fortune with my Fortune accounts, hey, invest in something. If it costs $1, it can make you five. It makes sense. It cash flows. Don't get caught on the sticker price. Think about cash flow. What can it cash flow for you? And if it's not cash flowing, your payment on this is about $2,000. If it's not making you, 4, 5, 8, 10,000, don't get it. But from what I've seen you do, it's right, you can't. So if you have more questions, our one advisement, you can always schedule a call with me because everyone has specific questions, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
So, and you kind of touched on a couple of things with the examples that you gave with Dr. Mosby and Miyazaki and some of the other folks. They really saw an increase in collections and new patient flow. So that's one way to measure it. And we can go into I do want to go into the actual laser mastery program right now. And would one of the things that you would show these doctors is like what codes they can use, what procedures they can use. I've heard you talk too, we're shrinking the actual chair time and really adjusting the whole schedule. Don't freak out any office managers that are listening, right? But really
Right.
taking a look at the whole structure of the business and using lasers to be more efficient. Is that where you're going with it?
Absolutely. So there's really, let me just define what the program's entitled. Here's who we're trying to serve.
Okay.
We're trying to serve three specific audiences. The first audience that we're trying to serve, first and foremost, is the doctor, because they will need clinical refinement. Like I said, this is different, not harder, but different. So we got to get it predictable, efficient, effective, easier, and it should be cleaner. I love it when I can give doctors aha moments, when they're like, it clicks and they got it. Because if they don't get it, then the rest is irrelevant. So some people take off with this. Some had a great training day and it clicked with them. Others kind of stumbled for whatever reason, but we've got to correct that. And I've got to teach the doctors how to self-correct when they have a problem. And so we want them to get comfortable with it. And then we want them to start doing more. When they start realizing this, hey, this is more than some cavity tool. We can do a lot of soft tissue things, same day dentistry that the patients want, that are extreme revenue boosters, because we can do it right then and there. So I want to serve the doctors first. And
Okay.
two is the team, because the team, like I mentioned, they're the missing component or the secret sauce. I really want them to understand. And I don't care if you're in the front desk, if you're an assistant or you're a hygienist or anyone on the team, the messaging should be coherent and everybody should know what the laser can do. And I want the hygienists especially to help co-discover some of these things that are very easy to do. So
Absolutely.
we've got to work on communication skills, pre-framing, the importance of building rapport so that we can dramatically increase enrollment. And we want to know, okay, what are the processes that are in place that we have that we need to alter what the laser can do? I want to make their job easier for them. That's the end goal of this. So we've got to talk about these processes and what we do. And the last person I want to serve is the patient. And I talked about patient experience. One of my missions and my passions is to change the patient experience in dentistry from one of fear to one of gratitude. People, like I mentioned earlier, that's why it's so important to know what people want. People want this done. They're just scared, and you can really wow them, and they're lifelong patients, and they're going to refer their family and friends. So I want to change that. I want the next generation not to even have dentistry in with death and taxes. It should have never been in there in the first place, but this will help it. So much of that team training helps do this for the patient. And so it reminds me, Kim, I know you've read this because we do this in Fortune Training, but it reminds me of Danny Meyer's book. It's called Setting the Table. If you guys are out there and haven't read it, read it. It's a great book, but the same rules apply in dentistry, guys. And to sum it up, basically 49% of your job is what your profession is. In our case, dentistry. Patients expect you to know dentistry and to be good at it. But 51% of your job is hospitality, or what we call in dentistry the patient experience. And if you're cognizant of that and know what the patients want and speak to it, you can completely change the experience with this technology. And I can tell you, it is so, so powerful. So that's who we want to serve. And really, Kim, our goals on this is I really want you to learn how to do those four things: transform the patient experience, increase new patients, increase new procedures that you're comfortable doing. Because I remember Bernie was on stage, Bernie Stoltz, our CEO. How I met him as we were keynote back-to-back speakers. And one of the things he said is, as a clinician, you're not comfortable diagnosing something that you're not comfortable doing.
Right.
And so we want to get the doctors comfortable doing these procedures and do it on the same day and then improve workflow. So that's really our goal, is to get that doctor clinically confident, get the team optimizing the laser and the processes that we have and how we alter them. And my goal is to increase production by 10 to 30% when it's all said and done.
Awesome. And that workflow, I love that whole paradigm shift. And that's what a
Right.
lot of our practices have had to do with other types of technology. So if if somebody's interested in in this program in laser mastery, what's the time commitment like? Help us understand how you work with your clients.
Yeah, well, it's 5 engagements, and we've had this set up many different ways when we're doing our pilots, and we really appreciate the feedback from those original doctors. But what we found works the best formula is a series of 5 engagements. So and it's usually over about 3 months. So I like to start off, well, 6 if you count this, but I have an initial call with the doctor, and I talk to them. I say, if you're getting the laser, why do you want to get it? What do you want it to do? Or if they've already bought it, why did you buy the laser? What is most important for you? Or, what does the manufacturer say that really rang true with you that you want it to do? And then what are some of the challenges that you faced and why hasn't it come to light, so to speak? Or what do you want to be expedited? And so we get that foundation down, and then the engagement starts. So the first engagement is we have a Zoom with the team, and we do it for 90 minutes. And really what the purpose of that initial Zoom is to reintroduce the laser to the team. I want the team to completely know and everybody to be on the same page of the benefits and specifically why the doctor purchased the laser. So I want to get them excited about it again, as opposed to, gosh, that patient raised their hand and we're not using it that much or whatever. They need to know that, hey, this tool can do this, and this is why we've got it. Okay, so everybody's on the same page. So we do that. And then the next 2 engagements are 30 days later, and it's in the doctor's office. So the first day is all clinical with the doctor. So that's the day where we build up that clinical expertise of the doctor, where we make it predictable. I don't want a doctor thinking, gosh, I'm going to flip a coin, and if the patient's going to feel it or not, and should I use that? That's not healthy at all. We want it to be predictable, efficient, and effective. So again, and I'm that security blanket during that day. So we're going to do some in vitro work, and I'm going to watch them. And every doctor has different rhythms and tendencies, and that's where I'm going to really find where they're off a little bit. And we're going to self-correct that, and I'm going to give them some pearls. So, and then we do cases all day, and I'm over their shoulder and I'm watching them. Are they doing what they were doing in an extracted environment? Are they not? Or are they doing something that I didn't even realize? So that's what we do on the first day, and it's all day. The next day, the immediate next day, is a day where we close down the practice, and every team member comes in, hygiene, front desk, everybody, and we come in, and it's a day where we work on the business, not in the business. And that's, Kim, that's a very involved day, and it's all day. And that's where we talk about all these things that I've talked about already. How do we get new patients? How do we get new procedures? What processes do we have in place that need to be tweaked? And this day is not about me lecturing. This is really me being quiet and asking questions. And we've got an action item board, and we do role playing. We get comfortable with conversations, and we really dive into, hey, what are these things that can really help our numbers, our business? Because little things make a big difference. And that's the immediate next day. And then we have the
Awesome.
4th and 5th engagements are very similar. And we follow up in 2-week increments after that. And that's really because everybody's different. Like I mentioned, the two, Dr. Mosby and Miyazaki, they had very different wants when we did this. So this is really customized. So the last 2 will be like, okay, tell me what's been going on. Tell me your successes, and tell me, where we quite haven't hit the mark, and we talk about it and what we need to do to correct it. So it's really interactive, and we're self-correcting and pivoting as we go and learning from our last couple of weeks experience. And that's kind of the flow. So in summary, Kim, I provide the framework and outline some of these potential hurdles, but they recognize that there's work to be done. Because I mentioned knowledge is only power, potential power, right? So they know that it takes commitment, because if you're committed to this, you will succeed. And so that's the bottom line. So I provide that framework, and then the teams get to work and do it, and they get these transformative changes.
Awesome. I love the outline. So really it's some Zoom meetings to set it up, and then you have the actual in office. I love that you actually are over the shoulder of the doctor, being that security blanket, and then really diving into the team to see how they can incorporate lasers into their practice, and then follow
Right.
up, which is what coaching is, holding people
Right. And a
accountable.
lot of times these manufacturers do a really good job But a lot of times, and you know this when you're, because you're in a training organization, a lot of times you get so much information, but you don't
Uh,
retain it all. So, and a lot of times
That's
on these initial training, they may only retain 20% of it. And you get to the point where you kind of know what you're good at and kind of don't. And it's good to follow up, a little bit later, because now you know what you don't know, as opposed to not knowing what you didn't know. You know what I mean? So it can be very, very powerful.
I love that. You don't always know what you don't know. So, Nick, how can people get a hold of you or learn more about Laser Mastery?
Well, like you mentioned at the beginning, this is a new division of Fortune Management that we started. So just go to fortunemanagement.com. And guys out there, it's Fortune, and management is MGMT. It's not management spelled out. So fortunemanagement.com. And then just click on, there's a button called services, and Laser Mastery, or excuse me, Fortune has a bunch of divisions, and Laser Mastery is one of them. So click on Laser Mastery, and I got a 4-minute video overview. We've got flyers and just a bunch of articles that have been written and things like that. So all the information is there. You can always reach out to me. It's just Nick Clausen at fortunemanagement.com. And again, it's fortunemgmt.com. And you can ask me specific questions on my signature. You can schedule a call with me if you want to ask me questions. And also, Kim, we've been talking about this. I want to do a Zoom or something like this every 45 days to 60 days. And in the future, what I want to do, Kim, is I want to talk to dentists that
Yeah,
have done this in different ways, and
absolutely.
how they succeeded and what their formula was. And because today's like a big picture of what can be done. And I want to take this and I want to play your role that you're doing for me. And
Sure.
I want to talk to some dentists that have done this, pediatric dentists, GPs that specialize in implants, GPs that specialize in Invisalign or family dentistry or whatever, or someone that's brought on new associates and have an itinerant specialist use the laser and they do implants, or whatever the case may be. There's different ways to do this. And so I've worked with a lot of great dentists, and my plan is to bring them in and talk about, oh my gosh, you grew your practice, exponentially. It doubled or tripled, or now you have 3 buildings, or now you have, whatever. And so that's what I'm going to be doing in the future. So guys, keep on a lookout for this. Today's a snapshot of what kind of it is and what can be done. And in the future, it's going to be more little verticals within dentistry and how different dentists have done that. So be on the lookout for those to come.
Very cool. I love it. I love it. I love that idea because you've got to hear it from real people. Well, Nick, I always learn so much when I'm on with you. And I love the fact that you're so passionate about the clinical side of lasers. And you also know how to incorporate the business side and the return on the investment and the profitability. So thank you for who you are with our company. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close it on up?
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to say is I really appreciate the privilege of your guys' time. I know that everybody out there is busy, and some people can make it and they can watch it recorded, and that's great. I don't take that for granted. But I really believe that dentistry deserves what lasers have to offer. So patients, doctors, and teams. It's not just the doctor, it's the whole team and the patient. So dentistry doesn't want being associated with this negativity that's out there. And it's not your fault. I want to say that again. In dental school, you are most likely not even taught much about lasers at all, not to mention business of dentistry, team management, communication, workflow, all these things that we've talked about. So this program fills the void for you to grow in those areas where you maybe didn't get that foundational training. And it will transform your business exponentially when you and your team get good at this, because I've seen it. I've seen it time and time again. So again, that's my passion, is to change from fear to gratitude for our patients. And believe me, when you can do that and you get comfortable with this, your laser ROI will really be what you envision, which is the title of this program. So,
Oh, that's so awesome. Well, thank you, Nick, so much. If anybody has any questions, it doesn't look like we have any specific questions, put them in the chat box. Thank you so very much for everybody for participating, or if you're listening on your own time, thank you for giving us a bit of your time, and be well. Thanks so much, Nick. Have
thanks,
a great
Kim. I
night.
really appreciate it, guys. If you have any questions, just you know where to reach me.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.